Good evening, everyone. Welcome. My name is Joe Davich. I'm the Executive Director here at the Georgia Center for the Book. And on behalf of the Georgia Center for the Book, DeKalb County Public Library, and the Decatur Arts Alliance, welcome to another of our artist talks for Book is Art, Volume 8, Infinity. Of course, like so many things, we have had to move our Book is Art show online, and we decided that what we would do this year, like our many author talks that we conduct, is to have the artists come and talk to us on Zoom. And we thank you for allowing those folks to come to your home and bring a little of the art exhibit and the art world to you at your convenience. I would also like to thank the DeKalb Library Foundation. They are, of course, the fundraising arm of our library system, and they pay for so many things that the tax dollars do not, including the Zoom account that we're coming to you live tonight. They are a wonderful organization that has so many programs that they contribute to, like 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten and our Take the Internet Home program. So do look at the Decatur Library Foundation for your seasonal giving this year, as well as the Decatur Arts Alliance. Our piece tonight that we'll be discussing is also for sale. And if you are interested in purchasing the piece, either in its full form or in a smaller form with just the book itself, you can go to decaturartsalliance.org and see the price list for that and make your purchases. Don't forget that a portion of those purchases do go to the Decatur Arts Alliance, so I thank you in advance for that. So this evening we have two artists that collaborated on the piece that we're speaking about, and they are Stephanie Russ and Isabelle Fleurelien. So they are coming to you from, of course, Montreal, Canada. This was an exceptional piece that combines both pottery and printmaking, and we're very, very excited to have them here to share this with you. So without further ado, will you please join me to welcome Stephanie Russ and Isabelle Fleurelien.
Hi. Hello. Thank you, Joe. Well, first off, Stephanie and I would like to thank everybody who took care of putting on this lovely exhibit. We're so happy to be part of it, and we really like all the digital videos that you guys have put up. It makes it easy for us to be there, not in person, but digitally, and yeah, we hope to see more. To start off, Steph is going to put a PowerPoint with some photos of the work and some videos. So this art project is a collaboration between Stephanie and I. It is not our first one. Steph and I were working on another project titled Undar. And with Undar, it got us an invitation to a small press atelier in Trois-Rivières in Quebec. And so we had a residency in summer of 2019. At this residency, we decided that we were going to continue working with the theme of water. And also Stephanie, who's very familiar with ceramics, had been doing a lot of throwing, wanted to also challenge ourselves and try to do something non-traditional for our book casing this time and start with some ceramics. So we don't know what came first, if it was the stories or the ceramics, but they kind of started all together. At the Atelier Presse Papier, the fun thing about that is that we had a small apartment and we'd go up every other weekend. And from the apartment, you can see the port of Three Rivers. From there, we decided that it was probably a great idea to continue collaborating and try to find some writers who would source some stories for us. And so Steph and I decided to choose some friends and some acquaintances and ask them if they had stories they would want to share that discussed water and discussed life on water. With that, we had four people join us, four wonderful writers. The challenge was for them to write no more than 350 words because the booklets are so small. And from what you can see here, Stephanie decided to move away from throwing and decided to work with manual building. And at first the idea was that we maybe work on a casing that was boat-like to talk about the stories traveling on water. But with a lot of research, she discovered the humpback barnacle. So from these, she designed these really lovely vessels which would house the small books that we made in the accordion shape. So that was the first set of the edition. This one here in the photo that you're seeing, this is a smaller edition. It's the same series of books, but we also wanted to make something much smaller. We found that the big vessel is lovely and it's a beautiful sculptural piece to have, but it's also interesting sometimes to do something a bit smaller. And also we wanted to share the books with the participants, the collaborators. So we designed these small boxes, and all of these were handmade by Stephanie. All the miniature barnacles were one by one sculpted and fixed on the covers. So here's a little video showing you how the book casing opens and works.
I think one thing to say about the barnacle is that the humpback barnacle lives on a humpback whale and it travels the ocean, and that metaphor was really important in thinking about the stories that we would solicit from people, that these stories were of people who lived on the water, worked on the water, and so they were carrying us, their stories were carrying us through this voyage, much like the barnacle that attaches itself to the whale and travels the ocean. So that was a really important kind of contrast for us to work with. And so the little box became that kind of small casing that would encompass all those stories.
So the writers that we invited come from different backgrounds. We have our first story. This is a story by Nathaniel Penn. He's a correspondent at GQ and the son of a Holocaust survivor. His story is about a young Jewish boy's journey across the Atlantic, escaping the Kovno ghetto during the Nazi occupation in Lithuania. So in this book, so the writers only supplied us the words. Stephanie and I had to really think about the graphic elements that were going to really support these stories. This one, the background going from light to dark, or dark to light in this case, the writing is light to dark, was I think it was a wash that you did, Steph, right? It was like an ink wash. So we use a lot of processes in our work. There's a lot of hand painting, some scanning, then we digitize a lot of the images sometimes. We never know if we're going to end up printing screen, litho, or digital. It really depends on the final results and the effect that we want to have. Also, sometimes we can be technically challenged with the scale of the work. For the next book, I think we're going to see, oh, more Nathaniel. We also have Katherine. Katherine Cruz is, no, this is Jonathan's book. So this one's really lovely. This is Jonathan Welsh. She's an American sailor who's lived on a sailboat for over 20 years. He travels between Florida and Canadian waters, and he works on Star Island in the summertime. So basically, Jonathan had years worth of journaling that he supplied us, a few samples that we edited ourselves, and really shared some of these moments that only people, I think, who live by the water, who travel by ship like this, would really understand. It's getting a nice little glimpse into everyday life, but for somebody who really does not live on land at all. So it's very surprising what you discover in these stories. This is a poem by Katherine Cruz. Now, Katherine is a friend of Stephanie. She's an artist, poet, and she also has a career in virtual care IT. Katherine does a lot of kayaking on the ocean. This is something I think she does sometimes by herself. And so this book we really wanted to capture the essence of this poem and the feeling of what it must be like to just take off solo on the ocean in a small kayak and really feel the movement and the depth of the ocean. Another little booklet too is a story by Albert Korean. Albert is a documentary film editor who lives and works in Montreal. In 2018, so the base of his story, in 2018, the reluctance of the Canadian government to cancel the export of arms to a genocidal regime forced Albert to go looking for Canadians who cared. He found a lot. Specifically, he met a group of longshoremen in St. John. One of these stories is about one of these longshoremen, which really is a touching story of people and their environment and what people will do when they really care about a situation that happens. Yeah, this book was also interesting to work on. Just the nature of it, it was a lot more political, so different compared to, say, Katherine's poetic story, but we really wanted to have diverse stories that really touched on a lot of lives and more like different experiences. This is the cover of the booklets. Now the covers they're all the same but slightly different because the positioning of them is a bit different, but these are screen prints. And they're also washes that were manual done by screen printing. A lot of the work was done at Trois-Rivières Atelier, Presse Papier. We wanted to work there because that's where the story was inspiring us. So as we worked on these 4 stories, we had one more book planned. Steph and I had a hard time finding our last story. We didn't have another writer. We thought we could maybe be inspired, and on one of our last weekends, we happened to be walking by the docks where at night there's these large, I guess, cargo ships that are docked there for a couple of days. And so one night we were walking by and there was someone on one of the dock ships, and I just decided to wave at this person waved back a couple of times, and maybe an hour or so later, after we went for a walk, the gentleman approached us, and it so happened to be this young naval officer from the Philippines by the name of Joram. We just decided in the spur of the moment to ask him if he would like to come share his story and talk to us the next day. And he said, yeah, he would. And so the next day he showed up. And he came prepared with a small USB key with about 300 plus photos of his experiences. And he had notes taken based on the discussion that we had with him the night before, notes about his experiences and everything that he does there. So he came, we took him for a tour of the studio, and we had a nice chat that we got to document. And from his notes and from our conversation with him, we were able to source these really beautiful quotes that speak to his experiences. He's usually on a ship for about 7 to 8 months. So he only really is on land for about 4 months, and that's when he goes back home. And he'd been doing that for many years now. I'm not sure, maybe 5, 6 years he'd been doing that. So in this case, do you want to go back just 1 second about Joram's book? So for Joram's book, we decided to do something a little bit different. We expanded the size of the book, the scale of it. We doubled it in size. Joram had showed us some star maps that he learned how to read when he was learning how to navigate ships. And we were really inspired by that. So the night that we met him, we were able to, on some website, find out the constellation of the sky, the night sky of that night. And so the star map is basically that exact moment where we met him. We created this kind of star map in homage to his navigational, old school navigational techniques. And those are his quotes on the other side. So for Joram's book, it's a bit of a reveal when you get to handle it. So this is some of the pictures from a boat, a neighboring boat. And just have a quick question. Do you still have the PowerPoint, Steph?
Yeah.
Okay, because I don't see it.
Okay.
I'm not sure why.
Everyone else see it?
Yeah, I can still see it.
Okay.
So I'm showing pictures. So Belle, if you can't see it, should I just continue?
Yeah.
This shot here is the Atelier in Presse Papier in Trois-Rivières, and we just thought we'd show you a few pictures. Some of you who are artists and book artists who could, apply to go there. It'd be an opportunity for you to spend some time in Canada and go to a great little print shop that's right on the river. We decided just to include some studio shots. This is Belle screen printing in the atelier. And then just back to, in previous talks, people have been very interested in the ceramics portion of how I made those barnacles. And essentially we realized that we wanted to have the kind of accordion book sit inside the barnacle because it was so much about the stories being carried. So we, and Belle was really integral in helping me figure this out in kind of an illustrator fashion of figuring out the sides of the pieces and the scale. And we also had to account for the shrinkage. The pieces were made out of porcelain and raku combination. So I had to kind of calculate that it would shrink up to 13%. So if the books were to sit inside and nestle properly, we had to figure out the scale of the pieces and the slabs to start building the construction to make the final works. So that's the end of our PowerPoint. I don't know if I can stop sharing. I can always bring it back up on the screen if people wanted to see images a bit further. But it was more just to give you an overview of the project and the pieces that we made.
Excellent. Thank you both so very much. Don't forget, if you have any questions for either of our guests this evening, feel free to either type them in the Q&A tab that's at the top of your screen. If you have an iPad, you know, check on your device to see where these little tabs and buttons are, but it should say Q&A, or feel free to type it in the chat and we'll go ahead and read those out to our guests this evening. So we do have some folks who always ask technical questions, and our first one out of the gate was about the books, and the question is, how do you choose the typeset?
Oh. How do we choose it? We go through so many. I don't know. I think it's more of a, for me, I'll say it's more of a feel. We have an idea of the scale. And like I said, the books are quite small. So 350 words can fill up quite quickly. And I guess for these ones, we went case by case because let's say for Jonathan's story, it seems very plain, but Jonathan's we use a notebook concept to recreate the idea of his journaling. And so we went for the different typeset for that one versus, I think for Nate's book, that was the hardest one. For Nate's book, the background goes from deep black to a very almost off-white paper color. We had to find the right font that would let us transition from black to white, overlapping on these colors. So we really, in this case, it was case by case. What was going to fit, what felt good with the color, and balance well with the imagery that was in the book.
So it sounds like to me you both had this you know, a definite division of labor, that one of you handled sort of like the stories and the printing, and then the other handled the building of the barnacles and things like that. Was there any overlap? You know, because we do have a few collaborative pieces in the exhibition this year that you know, both artists were printmakers and things like that. So it was kind of like a little bit of artistic push and pull. You know, but this one seems just very, you know, diverse media was used for this, and you all, while you created a wonderful piece, it seems that you almost worked within your own artistic worlds. I'm
a printmaker first before ceramics. So all of the books were made completely with Belle and I together. It was only the ceramics that was outside of our collaboration, but it still was. And that's why I was sort of mentioning Belle in helping me design and figure those elements out. But the creation of all of the books, all of the printing, all of the imagery is both of us.
Yeah.
And that's a huge part of how we work. And it's been a really interesting process because before, when did we start, Belle? It's 4 years now?
2016, yeah.
I had never worked collaboratively with anyone. I don't think Belle had either. And it was a very slow kind of like development into how we started working on bigger and bigger projects together. And now it's kind of become so important to me, I can't imagine not doing it anymore. It just gives such it's a fascinating way to work because you have to really let go of so much, and you have to be willing to be directed by someone else instead of having complete control of it yourself. And I think we have a really great rapport where we challenge each other to look at different ways of approaching something, and sometimes we totally disagree, but we seem to always find a place where we get excited and we move forward. So yeah, no, I think it's, when you're talking about collaboration, it's all that right now.
I was gonna add a little something too. I just realized as I was listening to you, Steph, the first the first collaboration that we really did together was working on a video. And the interesting thing is that neither one of us had ever worked on a video before, not in this way anyhow, like not in an artistic manner. So I think the fact that we were exercising this whole concept of collaboration, negotiation within the video work that we did probably really helped us find our language and our rhythm to then apply it to, like you said, like being a printmaker or my background in photography or ceramics. I thought that probably had a lot to do with it, thinking back now in hindsight.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that's what's so very interesting too about your pieces, is that, you have the one that, looks like the notebook, and then you have the pieces that do have, digital print in it. And there's a lot to take in when you physically see the object. And I'm apologizing to everybody that didn't get to physically see this thing this year. Hopefully we will all be able to see the books next year. But it's amazing. And I think that, especially watching and seeing the pictures of you all in the workshop, and, I used to piddle around with pottery, back in the day. And it's like, yeah, you have to account for shrink. There's a lot more that went into it than just, your artistic statement about it. There's a lot to consider. Did you guys lose it, with the shrinkage and then the raku, and I remember, when I was taking pottery, I tried a raku, and it was in an outdoor oven, and I know you can lose pieces because of the high firing. I don't know if it was a different style, of raku or anything. Did you guys lose any of the barnacles in that process?
I didn't fire it at raku. I just used raku clay, so that, because trying to hand build with porcelain would be super challenging. So the raku clay just gives it a little more body, and gives it a little bit of a yellowish tinge as well. So no, it just went into an electric kiln. Yeah.
Excellent. And, when you collected the stories too, because we just had an event with an editor who put together a book about immigration and diversity. And I always ask, authors when they edit something, the darlings that you had to kill. Did you have one or two stories that you would have loved to have worked that just didn't work with this particular piece? Or, did you find that perfect number and just say, that's it? And we're just able to sort of then move forward without having to do any, major editing or rethinking?
I think we got lucky. I think we really, that's the part that we weren't sure about once we sent out the call out to the 4 individuals. We didn't know what they were going to give us. No idea. And in the end, they supplied us really touching stories. And I think that we were just feeling good about it. So I think also the pressure maybe that comes when you want to honor the story and you want to do, like, they trusted us with these stories. They had no say on the visuals or how they were going to be presented. Some are more personal than others, but still they trusted us with them. And I think Steph and I went back and forth many times on having, they're tiny, but having the integrity of these imagery really had to support these stories, and we wanted to make them proud and really blow them away and to thank them for giving us or trusting us with these stories. So I think that was more the difficult part in that sense of not disappointing anybody. Yeah.
Excellent. I'm going to throw it back out to our the folks watching at home, if they have any questions, before we wrap up, don't forget that you can view the video on our YouTube channel. And we will debut videos every Tuesday, and then we do have author talks for the next 2 Wednesdays this month. And actually, read a story. We have a Could You Read a Story has come through.
Do you want the whole story? This one's not too long, but it's my favorite, gotta say. All right, I'll try to do it justice. So this is the story by Nathaniel Penn. When we escaped the Kovno ghetto, my mother dyed my hair blonde. I wasn't allowed to speak except to her. Even then I had to whisper because Yiddish was the only language I knew. She told people I was a deaf mute. If the Nazis came to the farm where we were hiding, I would go down to the basement as fast as I could and get into an empty wine barrel. I remember the sound of their boots. After the war, we went to Bremerhaven, the seaport. Our ship was a troop carrier, the Marine Fletcher. When the Americans let us, we would go up onto the deck to see the ocean. The Americans were taking care of us. Hershey bars. It was the first time I'd ever tasted chocolate. I remember chocolate and trying to understand what the hell was going on, and my mother telling me everything was going to be okay. I was a star attraction because there were not too many little boys who were alive. In the ghetto, there had been a law, the Kinder Action, that there could be any more children under 12. After 5-6 days, everybody rushed to the deck. I remember my mother held me and we looked at this thing, this green thing. I didn't quite understand what it was, but I knew it was something to be excited about. Everybody came to meet us, must have been a relative. We went to Lindy's in Times Square. There were a lot of people. I had no idea what language they were speaking. We sat at a table. It was like I was moving in a dream. I decided I would go get myself some chocolate, so I got up to find some by myself. My mother thought she had lost me. The next time I saw the ocean was at the Jersey Shore a few years later. Did I put together that this ocean had something to do with that ocean? I didn't dwell on what had happened. I didn't want to know anything.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing. I'm so glad that he chose to share that particular story. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't happen to have the poetry one sitting about, would you?
I do have the poetry one. To track it down.
I always champion on the side of poetry. So if there's poetry out there, we need to read some poetry.
So this is titled Depth by Katherine Cruz. As the kayak cuts the ocean, strength and vulnerabilities revealed. Mending in rhythm. Gliding through the mass, my hand touches the surface, rippling in tune. The floor has disappeared, replaced by rich darkness, silencing. And so that was
excellent. Glad you read that. And I truly like that, how that one fades into the blackness and you have the jellyfish there too. I just think, they're so wonderful on their own, but then when you see them in that sculptural presentation too, it's amazing.
Right, thank you.
Well, if no one else has any questions for our artists, we'll go ahead and close out this evening. Of course, we will have this on our YouTube channel, and that way you can refer back to it. You can go check out the catalog at decaturartsalliance.org and browse all of the wonderful artworks that are part of Book is Art Volume 8 this year. Don't forget, you can also, Stephanie, Belle, do you have a website or anything like that with your works that folks can look at?
Yes, it's just my name and Belle. Do you want to put it in the chat? Or is it?
Sure.
I guess I'll put mine as well.
I was putting yours in first. .com, right? Right? .com?
Mine is just, yeah, I've just put mine in and then you can put yours.
Excellent. Well, thank you both so very much for joining us this evening. Thank you all for allowing us to come into your homes tonight. We hope that you will continue to watch these videos and go to our YouTube channel and check out all of our events. And you can find out those on georgiacenterforthebook.org, or you can feel free to go to our Facebook page, and that will not only give you the most updated events, you can get tickets for Eventbrite, through Eventbrite for events like these, and just find other literary news that's going on in Georgia and around the world. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us this evening and sharing this wonderful work. I hope you both stay safe. I hope we all continue to stay safe. Keep reading and keep enjoying art. Thank you all so very much, and we'll see you again very, very soon.
Thanks so much,
Thank you.
Francine.